East Anglia, the region of England where I live, is one of the driest in the country. In fact, it only gets about 600 millimeters of rainfall each year. In some places it gets less precipitation than Jerusalem. We're practically a desert, right? But you'd be amazed at how much that statistic is bandied about by companies like Anglian Water, who are like responsible for, the water, saying we're dry, we have no water, we're as sad as Jerusalem, help us. But it doesn't matter because rainfall is so totally not the only kind of water endowment that places have. I'm Rebecca Farnum, this is Ramblings with Rebecca, and let's talk about why it doesn't matter that we get so much less rainfall here. Because the truth is that the water that we think of most as water in rainfall and precipitation and lakes and rivers is like a tiny, tiny amount of the natural endowment of water resources that we have. It's what some people call small water, right? Yes, it matters, obviously, and yes, it's useful. I like turning on the tap and having actual water come out. But as far as kind of bigger macro level things, it's a pretty small amount of the pie, as it were, that we have to share. And the water that I need for drinking is a very small percent of the demand pie as well. We said the other day that about 70% of our water resources globally actually go to agriculture and food rather than things like drinking and cooking and cleaning in the household. So we're going to talk about just a few of the other parts of water and other places that water is that we tend to not think about very well and not address and therefore not get into policy, etc., that we need to if we're really going to think about water in a holistic and therefore helpful manner. So the first and big one is soil moisture. All of the water that's stored in the ground, in soil, matters a lot for agriculture, right? Because if you've got a lot of water in the earth itself, you need to irrigate less. And that means you're taking less of that small water that you have from lakes and rivers and that kind of thing and diverting it to agriculture, which means you can put more of it into people's domestic want and into manufacturing and that kind of thing. So soil moisture is a good thing. There's a typology of colors of water, if you will, that is meant to help us kind of grapple our minds around this. Green water is the water in the earth that evapotranspirates when you grow things, but helps to grow all the crops, right, and are part of that endowment for agriculture that you need. Blue water is the water that we think of most often, that's in lakes and rivers and is blue. I mean, the coloring works, right? I mean, green for the grass and the land and blue for the bodies of water, the same kind of way that we draw the earth on the oceans versus the continents. So this blue and green thing can help. It's also sometimes called small water and big water, right? So way, way more water is in the soil than there is in the rivers and lakes, and way more of it is used in agriculture there. And it's really important to try and figure it out. But of course, it's also hard to quantify that amount of water, right? Because involves taking soil moisture densities at many, many places and figuring out how deep it goes and how much of that is actually going into the crops versus staying in the soil, etc. So part of the reason that we don't look at it very well is just because it's less obviously easy for us. But it has a huge impact, right? I mean, farmers in East Anglia, yes, sometimes have problems with water, but not in the same way that farmers in Jerusalem and Israel and the rest of the Middle Eastern deserts have problems with water and agriculture. All right, so for companies like Anglian Water to say we're as dry as Jerusalem, that's a complete falsehood, right? I mean, yes, we get as little rainfall as Jerusalem, but that doesn't matter and that doesn't actually mean anything as far as our ability to use water resources and to grow crops. And the other big issue here is evapotranspiration rates, right? How much water is being sucked out of plants and moisture constantly. We are not as hot or dry here in the same kind of way as Jerusalem is, right? So in Jerusalem, when rain falls, it gets sucked up almost immediately through evaporation and evapotranspiration through the plants. We have a way, way lower rate here in East Anglia. So it takes less moisture. We have to put less into the plants because they're losing less. So when we only look at rainfall and how many rivers and lakes that you have, it doesn't actually tell you much about your water or your ability to be food self-sufficient. We need to think more broadly about what water we actually have and why.